Geopolitical anxiety is currently centered on the rise of modern defense technology firms. The specific concern is that these entities are using their platforms to manufacture the conditions for a third world war to secure long-term government contracts. Edward Bernays established the blueprint for this intervention. In 1954, he engineered the public narrative to justify the U.S. overthrow of the Guatemalan government. Modern successors to the Bernays model, like Palantir CEO Alex Karp, build the artificial intelligence infrastructure that now drives defense strategy. Executives like Eric Schmidt support this shift, leading an institutional tech defense lobby that advocates for massive spending on AI-driven military systems. These algorithms are now focused on nuclear-armed peer nations and live geopolitical flashpoints. This raises the question of whether modern defense contractors are repeating the 1954 playbook. The strategy Bernays employed relied on specific events fabricated in the shadows and kept hidden from the public. Today's deception model is a mutation of that original strategy. It functions through transparency, operating entirely within the law. We map this shift. In 1954, the method relied on fabricated pretexts. These interventions required total public deception because the underlying threat was an invention. Modern pretexts leverage real geopolitical competition. They are stated openly from podiums, making them harder to dismiss as mere lies. Defense tech entities use algorithms to take these genuine threats and amplify them to maximalist crisis levels. This creates a threat inflation loop, where heightened perception drives the demand for multi-billion-dollar software contracts. Operation PBS success in 1954 reveals the mechanics of the original model. The United Fruit Company's land monopoly was threatened by Guatemalan agrarian reform, creating a clear economic motive for regime change. The Dulles brothers, controlling the State Department and CIA, were former attorneys for United Fruit. This connection fused corporate profit directly with state intelligence operations. Bernays designed a public relations strategy that painted the Guatemalan reformers as a Soviet beachhead, a narrative created entirely for public consumption. President Dwight Eisenhower authorized this manipulation at the highest levels of the executive branch. For the public, the test of conscience was simple, determining whether the government was lying. This model was highly effective against a weak state, where a single pretext could be fabricated. Despite the documentation of these events, the architects of these interventions faced no legal consequences. The Nuremberg trials set a standard for international law, but they only occurred because the offending state was completely vanquished and occupied. The post-1945 architecture, championed by figures like Eleanor Roosevelt, attempted to establish universal human rights. Designers of these institutions included the Security Council veto and specific legal carve-outs to ensure the great powers remained exempt from the laws they drafted. The primary goal was to prevent direct conflict between nuclear giants, not to police how those giants intervened in smaller regional conflicts. Geopolitical impunity for major powers is a deliberate architectural feature of the international system. Current defense planners are attempting to apply these same regime change tactics to modern peer adversaries. Guatemala was an isolated economy. A modern peer, like China, is a nuclear-armed state integrated into the global supply chain. Attempting to destabilize a peer nation triggers an immediate escalation. Retaliatory sanctions and military posturing create a loop where neither side has an off-ramp. The 1954 strategy worked because the Soviet threat was a fiction. Today, the economic and military rise of peer nations is real. The AI defense complex uses this reality to amplify genuine competition into an existential threat. This amplification serves the financial interests of firms whose revenue depends on a state of crisis. These systems process real data to justify massive defense contracts, removing the need for fake narratives. Applying a regime change algorithm to a nuclear-armed peer node risks a total strategic collapse driven by profit incentives. This problem originates in how we structure our internal decision-making. Historically, Western economic models adopted Adam Smith's theories on self-interest while ignoring his concept of the impartial spectator, the internal mechanism of moral judgment. The Eastern concept of Jixing Hai provides a different framework. It argues that knowledge and moral action are inseparable, forming an actionable conscience. True human conscience creates precognitive friction, a physical hesitation before a destructive act is committed. The modern test of conscience has shifted. Instead of asking if we were lied to, we must ask if we accepted a destructive action because a data model claimed it was justified. This creates the vulnerability of artificial intelligence without wisdom. The human loop contains moral friction. The AI loop is a perfectly smooth path. Being entirely cognitive, AI generates war justifications through data, experiencing zero precognitive friction or moral doubt. These systems are currently analyzing live geopolitical events to output strategic responses. A frictionless system acts with the same single-minded focus as a sociopathic PR firm. It is the Bernays model with a massive vocabulary upgrade. The danger is not found in a machine plotting a war. Humans remain the final decision makers, but they are increasingly relying on algorithms that confirm their own biases and deliver justifications without moral hesitation. An intelligent system that fluently simulates the language of conscience without actually possessing it is a dangerous counterfeit.